It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Wilmington Blue Rocks play-by-play broadcaster, Gary Erdelyi. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to work in professional sports?
So basically, like any other kid, you always want to grow up to be an athlete. Standing at 5'9" and 165 pounds, that was not in my career paths. So I always knew I wanted to be in sports. And while I was at Rowan University, I got the chance to broadcast games for their school. And that just, once I did one game, I knew that's what I wanted to do. That's what I want to do. I want to broadcast games for the rest of my life. I knew that specifically was the thing I wanted to do.
What was it like to go to Rowan University to work with the radio station and broadcast games?
So that was the coolest thing, in my opinion. It really was. And everyone talks about how paying your dues, getting your experience somehow. That was that. And Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS-FM in Glassboro is one of the most highly regarded college radio stations in the United States, and you could argue elsewhere. They've won national titles for things. And I got an experience to work at a high level environment with professionals, people at the top of their own right. Got a chance to work with them and then call games, not at a D1 level, but going to a D3 school, you get that chance to do every game. ESPN's not going to come in and do Rowan versus Montclair. So you're going to do these big games. You're going to do everything. These big time rivalries for the school. You get to do that. You're acting as the voice of this school. And it was really cool to get that opportunity. And I got the chance to cover so many cool things. Me and you had Kayla on. Me and Kayla went to Cedar Rapids to cover the Division III baseball national championships. Covered countless regional tournaments and big rivalry games and a couple basketball tournaments. I got an experience at Rowan that I don't know if any other 20-year-old would have got. Or 21-year-old, now going to be 22. There's not many people who got the chances that I got because I went to Rowan.
That's so amazing. Can you talk about, of course, your time working with Thomas Jefferson University as the play-by-play broadcaster?
Yeah, so this year was crazy. I think we all kind of know that. And I got the chance to work with Jefferson because of a Rowan alum, a station alum, a former sports director before me, who's their SID. He asked my station manager, Derek Jones, little shout out to Derek, and he asked him, he was like, "Hey, does Gary want to come do games for us? We'll pay him." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I got Rob's number, I got their SID's number. And just text them real quick, "Hey, I can do any game." And I was doing I was scheduled for 4 or 5 soccer games at that point, because they just needed people because they pushed their fall season into their spring. And they pushed their fall into their spring and they needed people to do soccer. I was like, "Yeah, I've done soccer. I can do it." And I did a couple soccer games. Then this comes to that. He texts me. He's like, "Hey, I need someone to do this baseball doubleheader. I need someone to do this softball playoff game. I need someone to do the soccer championships." I was like, "Yep, I'm there. I'm there for all of them." And it was just a cool experience covering the Rams. I mean, that was really the first time where I got to cover a team that wasn't Rowan. So you do that, you're not as you don't go in as invested, and you don't know these people, so you have to do more work. And it was a lot of fun going up to that challenge and then doing a good job with it, in my opinion.
What was it like preparing for different games? Like, obviously, you might have known about soccer, but you didn't know maybe about baseball or volleyball. What is it like preparing for those sports that you don't know that much about?
Well, so you bring up volleyball. That's funny. I almost had to do a volleyball game, boys volleyball game. Sadly, it got canceled before I was gonna do it. But I almost had to do a volleyball game, and I was kind of freaking out because like I've never called volleyball. I've never played it besides like in gym class in high school, and I was just like hitting the ball as hard as I could. Like I didn't know the sport that well. But essentially, I just read up on it. I just watched it. Big shout out to ESPN for making the ESPN Plus bundle, because I watched so many so many collegiate volleyball games in the week before I had to do that game. Just every night, just keeping it on. And it's the same thing. A lot of people don't know soccer. A lot of people don't know how to broadcast soccer or even the sport in general. That's how I did it. When I was first starting out, because I didn't play soccer growing up, I just turned on the TV and started watching random MLS games because I knew they would call it a more Americanized way. And people always think of the international way of doing soccer, which in my opinion, I enjoy more, but I'm not international. I'm in the United States. So I need to appear as an American broadcaster. So just watching random MLS games and just picking up on the tricks those commentators do. A guy I really like is actually the voice of the Devils. I'm not sure if he's still the voice of the Red Bulls, but he was Steve Cangelosi. He's the play-by-play guy for the Devils, and he might still be it for the New York Red Bull. Watch a lot of games of his. I grew up watching him do the Devils, so I was like, oh, let's figure out how he does this. And it's just watching other people, finding out what other people do, and then building off that to grow yourself.
What was your time like working with the Delaware Blue Coats?
So the Blue Coats was a really cool experience because I was a producer. I didn't do play-by-play. I was a studio host and a producer. The producing stuff I've done countless times. I knew what I was doing. That wasn't anything crazy to me because I did that. I know how that works pretty well, and I could fix issues if they happen like that. I know how the system works. But when it comes down to just working for a G League team in a new environment, like they were in a bubble, so we had issues. We had to figure out how we're going to do certain things, and it was weird. It was weird. Going into a spot where I had to set up a pregame and a postgame and find stuff for that. It was just weird to do that because I never had to do that, like fill a 30-minute halftime show or a 30-minute pregame show or whatever it was. And by technical standards, like I said, they were in a bubble. We couldn't pump crowd noise in from the bubble. Like we couldn't get the squeaking of the shoes because we couldn't get that audio. So we had to find a way to do it. And I remember I came into the station one day, and our station managers, Derek Jones and Leo Kirshner, pulled me into the production studio, and they're playing like they're just playing like a 30-minute loop of crowd noise. And it's all like, does this sound good? I'm all like, yeah, it sounds really good. They're like, okay, that's what you got to play. And it was just weird challenges like that that we had to get over this year because it was a crazy year and there was nothing we had to account for everything. That was a part of it. So that's really what was the bulk of the Blue Coats job was you had to account for everything because anything could happen at that point, which was really cool. It was fun.
Of course, what was the transition like from you from going from being a college play-by-play to now working like in the minor league system with both the Delaware team and the Blue Rocks?
So going in from it's weird because I never once like when I got announced to be a part of the Blue Rocks and the Blue Coats, I was pumped because I was like, oh, these are semi-professional teams. These are professional athletes, which is really cool. But once you're like in it, like once you got the headset on, once you're doing the show, the pregame show, or once you're on the air doing the game, it kind of doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because I've covered D3 sports, D2 sports, D1 sports, and now professional sports. The game's the same. Basketball is the same. It's not going to change. Put the ball in the hoop. Baseball is the same. It's not going to change. Hit the ball as hard as you can. It's the core elements of every sport is going to stay the same. The dimensions of the court stay the same. The dimensions of the field stay the same. So I never once really thought, oh, I'm doing a professional game today. That was crazy. The close I got to that was when I did do my first game for Ryder, because it was for their like ESPN streams. It was for the ESPN 3 stream and then the Plus streams. And you kind of like, that's a little cool to see. You see the ESPN graphics and you're all like, oh yeah. By no means, I'm not an ESPN employee, but it was cool to see like the graphics and the truck and all the glitz and glam of a high level broadcast, a little more expensive broadcast, for that matter. So I never really once was like had a like lull in a transition period between Blue Rocks, Blue Coats, Ryder, Jefferson, Rowan. Always kind of felt the same.
Of course, what was it like to have the feeling of becoming the play-by-play broadcaster for the Wilmington Blue Rocks?
It was really cool because you always want that like first real yes, because you're gonna hear a lot of no's. I've reached out to countless teams and universities, and it was cool when Ryder answered too. It was a similar feeling, but one was a little bit more glamorous. And I'll get to that. But when I got to work with Ryder, I was reaching out to any school within a 100-mile radius, seeing if they needed broadcasters. And some answered yes, some answered no, some answered call us back next week or something. Like it was weird. But Ryder finally said yes. And I was super thrilled because I knew I'd be doing a D1 game on an ESPN Family of Networks production, which was cool. But then when I got the Blue Rocks job, it was a lot crazier. I don't know if you've seen the video where they announced all the broadcasters for this year, but like it was like a Zoom call with Liz Welch, a member of the Blue Rocks, and Neil Hartman, a former Philadelphia broadcaster, and now I'm not sure if I'm gonna get his title right, but he's like the head of sports communication at Rowan University. And then Derek Jones, the station manager at Rowan Radio. It was all of them in a Zoom call, and I didn't know what to expect. I thought this was like follow-up interview to try and thin the herd, and they told me you got it, and you could see like my instant reaction, my face turns red, all that stuff. It was really cool because it was finally like a lot of the hard work that I put in during my 4 years at Rowan was finally truly paid off with something to show for it. I have things to show for it, but like this was a major accomplishment that not many people have, and definitely not many people under 23 years old can say that they are part of a major league or minor league professional baseball organization.
That's so amazing. What are some of your popular catchphrases that you use during your broadcast with the Wilmington Blue Rocks?
With the Blue Rocks, so the problem is with catchphrase, because I've had this a talk with people before, because every time you say, oh, you do play-by-play, you're a broadcaster, what's your blank call, what's your home run call, what's your goal call, what's this, what's that, and like I never like 100% thought to put one down, because I was all like, if you do that, it's gonna like feel weird and forced. But there are a couple things I said. There's a couple home run calls that only work with certain players, and I kind of took it when I did Rowan. The first time I did it, it was a grand slam by Rowan. He probably played first base that game, but a Rowan infielder named Victor Cruz. He had a grand slam against Rutgers Newark, and I said, Victor Cruz, how do you do? That was the call, and I was like, oh, it rhymes, it's good, that's good. And then that was his home run call for a really long time. And then I went into Wilmington. Someone who was not the personnel name hit a home run, and I was like, that doesn't sound good. And because I did the how do you do thing, and it was like, that does not sound good. That can only work with certain people if it rhymes. And then I did a game a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that. And Jake Alou hit a home run, and I said, Jake Alou, how do you do? And that rhymed. It was good. But there's like dumb little things I say. When I did basketball and hockey, they're getting a little scrum sometimes. So, extracurriculars, some pushing and shoving, the cliche things that I think are just funny. But I like some extracurriculars going on. I like that. That's like my favorite little line ever. But I don't really have like a true catchphrase or none. I never wrote pen to paper on anything and tried to get a word in.
Of course, do you have any for the Delaware team?
They had a swarm of nicknames for a lot of guys. I'm blanking on a couple of them, but the big one that we didn't come up with, it's his Twitter handle, and shout out Paul Reed, B-Ball Paul. That was the nickname that he gave. I don't know who gave it to him, if he gave it to himself, but he was B-Ball Paul, and then double Paul, because he was always getting double doubles. And then he was out the mud Paul Reed, which we came up with none of these, but I used them. I use them all the time. I don't know how often the people on commentary doing play-by-play or color use them. I remember Joe Stauffenberg used B-Ball Paul a couple times. They used B-Ball Paul, but I don't think they used out the mud. But I love that. That's like my favorite nickname he's got.
Of course, what are some of your fond memories and favorite moments of working with the Wilmington Blue Rocks and the Delaware Blue Coats?
With those two teams, there were some really cool moments, and I'm still waiting. The Blue Rock season is very young, and while it isn't, it's weird. So it's been a weird time covering the Blue Rocks, because they've had some crazy moments already. I believe earlier on in the year, Yasiel Antuna hit a walk-off home run. It was like his second hit of the year or something. That was a really cool moment. I forget who did it. There's been so many walk-offs this year, which was really cool to see, and watching and listening to them. That's really cool. I did a game a couple weeks ago with someone, and they went into extras, bottom of the 10th. It was a walk-off homer, to I believe right center field. I can't remember who did it. It may have been Antuna, but it may have been Pineda. I'm not sure, because both of those two struggled that day, if I'm correct. So I can't remember which one finally got out of the slump that day. But with the Blue Coats had a heck of a run. They went to the G League finals. Sadly, didn't win. They fell in that game, and it wasn't not the prettiest in the world. But a lot of the memories that were really cool were just going when you're in the studio with someone you like. You could get some fun conversations and start talking about. Sometimes you get carried away and don't talk about the game because you're not on the air, you're not live. So you can talk about whatever you want, and some of those conversations are cool. Like the one we always go to is like MJ versus LeBron. So having those arguments, and that's a part of the cool thing because you could just talk at that point. You're not set to do anything till pregame, postgame, halftime. So just interacting with a buddy of mine in the studio was always a cool environment. And then watching their entire run, I mean, they started out like 8-0, and then a huge hole in the mud, and then got out of it. But watching Paul Reed do what he did, where it was like 20 and 10 every night. PJ Tucker just slamming it down sometimes, being a menace. In the playoffs, Isaiah Joe coming in, that was really cool watching him get the first real look we finally got at Isaiah Joe, because he was up with the Sixers for a really long time. And then once the postseason came, they wanted a really good player down there, I guess, and he was really good. And we were talking about it. He was like, we need to see him shoot the ball better. He can't be going 0 for 5. He can't be doing this. Can't be doing that. And then all of a sudden he explodes one game in the postseason, and we're like, that was the game. That was the game. So there's a lot of cool moments in both teams. The Blue Rocks, obviously, still plenty of time for some more fun moments, though.
Of course, with the Blue Rocks, what is it like to share the broadcast with Kayla?
So I actually we share the broadcast with plenty of people. So it's a part of Rowan, like a Rowan internship kind of, where it's, let's see if I get everybody. Me, Kayla, Aaron Hook, Brandon Harrison, Caraguno, Paul Stanker Jr., Danny Ryan, Dylan Siddiqui. I think that's it. I hope I'm not missing any, but those are all the broadcasters. Those are all the people that go to the games. So it's weird because it's like not every day I'm covering this team. I'm not there every day, and it's cool in a way because now I can do other things. I work part-time as well, because you gotta make that money, gotta make that cheddar. So I do that. I get to stay home and do what I got to do, and I can also read up a little bit more and do more prep work because I have so many days to prepare, which is cool and good and bad at the same time. But it's a weird experience covering a team with a lot of people. Because you switch roles every so often. You do one thing one day and do one thing another, which is cool, but it's also I feel out of place sometimes. So it's a weird experience and has some growing pains, but we'll take it either way.
What is something that you learn now that you didn't know before you started broadcasting?
I think Kayla said this. I might steal her answer, but I'm not sure if she said it. So please don't expect anything bad. The amount of work that goes into a broadcast before you even put on the headset. The amount of work when you first start covering a team, it's usually the worst. The amount of work you have to do. what was the number she said? Like 2 to 5 hours of prep work for a game. When you cover a team long enough, like when I was covering Rowan, it got to a point where like 2 hours is enough and then some, because I've covered the team the entire season. I know every player inside out. I basically know all their stats off the top of my head. I know where they went to high school. I know this and that. I know fun little facts about them that I don't even need to look down at the paper to say. But most of the prep work comes with the other team at that point, with Rowan. But when you first start doing a team, when you're new to a team and how they work, you're near that 5 hour range. You're near that 5, 6, 7. Not all in a row, obviously. That'd be crazy. But you're in that range a little bit. And to think that, oh, that's what I'm doing in the minor leagues, where there's not as much information on these guys, or that's what I'm doing at the D3 level, where there's like no information on these guys, or at high school levels, there's nothing because the kids are 16 years old. In fact that you could put in that much prep work for a kid that doesn't have a huddle account, that's ridiculous. And that puts in perspective like what the guys at the national stage have to do each week, each day for a game, or just professional local guys have to do. To see that's crazy to me, how much work they could put in, because I know how much I put in. So it's got to be crazy for that. So that's probably the biggest thing. You can't just show up to a game and call it. I mean, you can. It's not going to be good, but you can do it. So that's why I thought it was really interesting. The fact that you have to do so much work to get to the game, to get to the broadcast, whether it be notes or bringing production elements in, or bringing random stories in, or doing whatever, interviews, whatever you got to do. All that stuff is just crazy to me, how much you actually have to do in order to have a sound, good, compelling broadcast.
Who is some people that you look up to in the broadcast industry?
Well, there's a couple, and I'll name drop professionals that I like, guys that I like. Steve Cangelosi with the Devils. I always love how his voice is, and apparently people don't. I just think it's like, that is, hockey broadcasters are so interesting to me, because like nobody has that tradition. Not many people have that traditional, like deep, hard, strong broadcaster voice. The guy with the little handheld microphone at a baseball game doing it like that. Like that doesn't exist in hockey. And I love Kanji. He's awesome. But the guy you always got to bring up when you talk about hockey, and I say the greatest broadcaster of all time, greatest play-by-play guy of all time, Doc Emmerich. He is the greatest. He is. And that's sadly retired. I wish he would go forever. But he's been, they do a good job without him, but it's not the same without Doc in the booth. And to listen to Doc do some of his best games and do so many great hockey games were awesome. And like one of my favorite professional sports games, one of my favorite games ever was Devils Rangers Eastern Conference Finals 2014, the Henrique It's Over game. Doc Emmerich's on the call, and it's just so perfect. Everything about the game was good. The broadcast possibly was even better. So that's what I love about that. But then other people, I mean, people I work with push me really hard. And I say Kayla is definitely one of them. She is light years ahead of like everybody. So to try and just keep up with her is a fun and a hard challenge. So I like to say she's someone that pushes me a little bit, because she's my colleague. She's been with me since my sophomore year, her freshman year. And we both worked together, doing what we had to do to get to on the next stage. And I congratulate her to what's coming up next. And we'll keep pushing from there. And then obviously I have to shout out my boy Derek Jones. He is the voice of Princeton basketball, the voice of Rowan football, and he is a ESPN broadcaster. Where in and out of times, he did a lot of games in the MEAC tournament. An awesome guy, and he's taught me so much. And to have a mentor like that is just such a cool thing to have, because a guy who's so experienced has started where I was at Rowan, sports director, and just building himself up to a point where he is at the top of his game, the top he can be at. Mark Erdelyi, two of my really close friends. Same thing with Kayla. They push me because they work hard. I want to work just as hard as they are. They're older brother in a way, so I want to get to where they are.
That's wonderful. What advice would you give somebody looking to become a play-by-play broadcaster?
Do anything. Do anything. If you gotta cold call people to get on air, cold call people. That's what I did to get on air at Ryder, and just work. I'm a big fan of just working, and as much work as you could do. If someone calls you and says, "Hey, we have a game an hour and a half away from you, can you do it?" Yes. It shouldn't take much to get you out. And obviously there's reasons you can't do things. There's always going to be reasons, and that's okay. But any opportunity you can take, you have to take it, because you don't know you don't know how many you're gonna get. They're not guaranteed. So you just got to keep working, and that the rest will come. I mean, to find how to make a game sound good. Look, if I go back and listen to the game I did last year, if I go back and listen to the game I did yesterday, I'm gonna hate it, because that's just how we are. So just keep working. Every game's gonna get better. You just need to keep doing them, and it's all about reps.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
So first and last name. Oh, wait, I want to make sure. The only real social media I use really often is Twitter. I do have an Instagram account, but I don't use it as much. Yes, so it is Gary, Gary _ERDELYI, first and last name, underscore in the middle. Also, check out my website, www.GaryErdelyi.com. Got reels, all that stuff, all fun little gadgets and gizmos on there. But that's really all I use. I don't use Facebook or MySpace or Bing. I don't use I don't use AIM instant messenger. I'm a Twitter guy through and through.
Thank you again, Gary, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Wilmington Blue Rocks.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Gary, for your interview, and best of luck.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.